colder up here than it is back there. I think it was by design because they didn't want us to ask many questions and just kind of be quiet. Right.
Didn't work.
It didn't work, but I think that if we make too many adjustments, when the sun comes back out, we'll be sorry that we made the adjustments. So,
yeah. I think university air conditioning systems operate, it's a binary kind of thing. It's either cold or it's hot. There's no in between. It's like this on most campuses. So
we're
be
either
careful
really
of what
saving
you
money
ask
or we're
for.
spending a lot of money. It's like we're both ends of the spectrum, right? I think that just one housekeeping matter. I want to call you Governor Gallup, Governor Franklin. I think that you had a colleague that you wanted to recognize from University of North Florida. Is he, are they still here?
They just left.
I'm sorry. Did want to, Governor Franklin sent a message that his counterpart at the University of North Florida was present, and we want to at least recognize the fact that, I don't know, was it he or she? I don't know his or her.
It was a guy. It was him and his vice president, actually.
Do you want to say his name so we'll have it for the record? Do you want to say his name?
Sure. The student body president's name is Situ, and the student body vice president's name is Giovanni. They were here doing the work plan for the university. They had to leave because of some classwork, but also they're sending someone else from the student government on Friday during the full board meeting, as well as tomorrow, to continue to engage and listen to all the work plans of what we're doing here at the Board of Governors.
Great. Thank you very much, Governor Franklin. I appreciate it, and I apologize for not recognizing them during or before the presentation. At this time, we now have Florida A&M University. We have Dr. Ammons. Dr. Ammons, if you would start by introducing who you have with you at the table, and please go ahead and get started.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We have with us today the Chair of our Board of Trustees, Mr. Bill Jennings. To his left, Dr. Maurice Holder, who is also President of the Faculty Senate and a member of our Board of Trustees. Dr. Solomon Badger, member of our board, and our Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Cynthia Hughes Harris. And of course, I want to welcome to the Board of Governors, Gallup Franklin, who is our SGA President at Florida A&M, and also a member of our Board of Trustees. To you, Madam Chair and Vice Chair Colson, members of the Board of Governors, to the Chair of our Board of Trustees and members of our board who are joining me, to Chancellor Brogan, fellow presidents, colleagues, and our Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. I want to say right at the outset, how appropriate it is that we have a change in the weather as we see the dark clouds rolling in over the horizon. There is something very special that rattlers do when the dark clouds roll in, Chancellor. But again, I want to thank you all for this opportunity to be here with you today. And I also want to congratulate my colleagues who made their presentations before I did. I think what you saw from their presentations, this is a great idea. There is just so much that we have to be proud of in the State University system of Florida. And you just heard two powerful stories from two universities, and now you'll hear from Florida A&M University as we share the work plan for our institution with you. In fact, this work plan articulates clearly the future direction of the university over the next few years. Founded in 1887 as a small teachers' college to educate freed slaves, Florida A&M University has blossomed into one of the country's leading land-grant universities. FAMU recruits and retains talented students, renowned faculty and scholars who are as accomplished in the classroom as they are in the research lab. As the largest historically black college or university in the United States, Florida A&M is a place where people who believe they can transform the world are encouraged to do it. Florida A&M University today enrolls more than 12,000 students, including nearly 2,000 at the graduate and professional level. In 2009, we had a student population that was 90.7% African American, 4.7% white, 2.1% Hispanic, Asians, non-resident aliens, and American Indians rounded out the student body. Nearly a third of FAMU students, about 4,000, are pursuing degrees in one of the sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics, or healthcare areas that are critical to the state and to national needs. The university now claims more than 55,000 active alumni, two-thirds of whom live and work in the state of Florida and contribute to its economic and social vitality. Through its 11 doctoral programs, FAMU has developed a national research presence, which in 2008 generated nearly $50 million in total contract and grant awards. This is particularly noteworthy because most institutions that outperform us are in attracting research dollars are substantially larger, older, and often have medical schools. The power of our research enterprise is such that our former Vice President for Research, Dr. Larry Robinson, was recruited away from FAMU by President Obama as Assistant Secretary of Commerce in NOAA for Conservation and Resource Management. The statistics that I mentioned just a few minutes ago on research and doctoral degrees are the basis of our Carnegie classification as a doctoral research institution. The Carnegie Foundation, as many of you know, uses U.S. Department of Education data regarding academic degrees offered at the doctoral level, degrees awarded, as well as the level of research activity to rank universities across the nation. In addition to the 11 doctoral degrees, the university also offers 3 professional degrees. And through these doctoral, undergraduate, master's, and professional degrees, FAMU is making a significant impact both in the state of Florida and nationally. In fact, when we take a look at data from 2008, FAMU produced almost 40% of the nation's African American PhDs in environmental sciences. 25% of the nation's African American PharmDs, and 25% of the nation's African American PhDs in pharmaceutical sciences. When we look within the state university system of Florida during that same period, 2008-2009, FAMU accounted for more than 80% of the African American PharmDs graduated, 50% of the African American PhDs in engineering, more than 60% of the African American JDs, and more than 40% of African Americans who achieved PhDs in the physical sciences. Today, FAMU is ranked #1 among all public institutions by the National Science Foundation for African American graduates who go on to earn PhDs in science and engineering. In fact, 36% of the graduate degrees awarded by FAMU are to students in the STEM areas: science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and health-related disciplines. You, the Board of Governors, have identified these areas as key strategic areas of emphasis, and FAMU is contributing in a significant measure. The creative talents of our faculty and students have led to the development of 5 new patents over the past 2 years for drugs to fight cancer, Parkinson's disease, and treat depression as well as skin disorders. FAMU researchers are actively engaged in developing new drug delivery systems, nanomedicine, renewable energy, marine and coastal ecosystem health, plasma physics, viticulture, and water quality, which is very much needed as we speak. All underscore FAMU's standing as a leading public research university. The data evidencing our strength are summarized in the FAST fact sheet that accompanied our work plan. The future of FAMU is guided by an ambitious strategic plan entitled 2020 Vision with Courage. FAMU is combining its unique resources to address some of the toughest challenges facing our state and our world today, from issues of race and social differences, global and rural health, to new frontiers in science and technology. And as a part of this strategic plan, we will develop, enhance, and retain appropriate fiscal, human, technological, research, and physical resources to achieve the university's mission. During the last 3 years, and Governor Tripp, I know that you are particularly interested in this, this administration has been good stewards of our fiscal resources, receiving 3 consecutive unqualified audits with no findings. Our goal is to build upon this stewardship, continue accountability, and optimize state-appropriated resources invested in FAMU. We will continue to recruit excellent and diverse faculty, staff, and students. Now, you have heard from some of my colleagues today, and we know that we must supplement our state appropriations. Therefore, we are finalizing a plan as we speak to launch a comprehensive campaign to sustain us at a new level of distinction, extend the reach of our scholarship, and support our commitment to the discovery and dissemination of knowledge. We will enhance the academic and social environment, promoting internationalization, diversity, and inclusiveness. We have established a new Critical Languages Institute, and we have partnered with the U.S. State Department to provide a U.S. ambassador in residence on our campus. Our plans align very nicely with the Board of Governors' strategic plan. The FAMU strategic plan contains accountability indicators and includes an implementation schedule that will guide the university's progress over the next 10 years. We are planning to use our strengths to further build the intellectual capital and economy of this state. One of our most impactful ways of supporting New Florida is through a potential College of Dental Medicine. Understanding the significance of this venture, we spoke with Chancellor Brogan last fall. Subsequently, Chair Parker has met with the chair of our board, Chairman Jennings, Chancellor Brogan, and myself to discuss this initiative. The primary objective of a potential College of Dental Medicine were outlined in a concept paper that we shared with the Chancellor back in 2009. And with advice from Dr. Howard Bellett, whose picture you see there, a nationally recognized consultant, we have crafted a set of objectives. The college's objectives are to graduate well-trained dental students and primary dental care residents, to increase the supply of dentists from disadvantaged backgrounds, and to provide dental care to low-income citizens in rural and underserved areas of Florida. If this program is approved by the board, students will have the opportunity to obtain formal training and advanced degrees in public health, in business, and health services research in combination with a Doctor of Dental Medicine to address the community oral health problems that we see throughout this state. The college, again, if approved, would target recruitment programs towards students and residents from disadvantaged backgrounds and from applicants who have demonstrated an interest in community service. There is a strong need for this program because many Floridians have inadequate access to dental services. The poor, medically disabled, and those living in rural areas receive much less dental care and have more oral disease than any other population groups. Only 11% of low-income people living in rural areas, according to the Department of Health here in the state of Florida, see a dentist annually. As a result, many low-income children and adults have serious oral health care problems that cause pain, infections, eating problems, and facial disfigurement. These problems reduce the ability of children and adults to study and to find work. Poor oral health may also result in more serious systematic illnesses such as diabetes, oral cancers, coronary artery disease, and premature births. We have studied institutions from across the nation, looking at their program mix, their missions, and we have developed two groups of peers, our current institutional peers and our aspirational peers. When compared with our peer institutions, as I mentioned before, several have medical, dental, and law schools like Howard University in D.C. Likewise, our aspirational peers include those like the University of Louisville and Temple University that have pharmacy and dental programs as well. Our mission as a land-grant university dictates that we use research and extend the expertise beyond the campus to meet critical state needs. The dental needs in Florida mandate that we work closely to add more dentists from diverse backgrounds who are committed to working with underserved populations, especially in rural areas. In the next 3 years, we will also study how we can implement other new degree programs in health professions to address the healthcare needs of the underserved, to increase production in STEM disciplines, and to leverage unique partnership opportunities. A major focus of the programs, research activities, and the broad array of community outreach activities will address health disparities among the underserved populations of this state. Our foundation in these areas, which we hope will expand through the implementation of a College of Dental Medicine, a Master's in Biomedical Sciences, PhD in Chemistry, Master's in Mathematics, will become our contribution to the State University System of Florida and the state of Florida. We will build upon our current strengths of extending our health services to underserved populations. For example, this academic year, the FAMU College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences received national recognition from President Obama for its community service initiatives and was named to his 2009 honor roll for community service, which is the highest federal recognition a college or university can receive for its commitment to volunteering, service learning, and civic engagement. 27,000 community service hours by the College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences equated to $1.4 million worth of pro bono clinical work by our students and our faculty. To make this 21st Century Living and Learning Center a reality during the next 3 years, we will enhance our visibility and productivity as a doctoral research university by increasing research and development expenditures, grant proposals, patents, and economic development activities. In addition, we will increase the number of activities to address healthcare disparities among underserved populations. We will initiate activities to offer academic degree programs and volunteer health care services in Crestview. Once our oral health care study is completed, we plan to submit to the Board of Trustees at FAMU and to the Board of Governors a proposal for the College of Dental Medicine. We will initiate online academic degree programs through a partnership with a major foundation, which will market and help us offer select high-demand programs. In addition, we will increase the persistence and retention rates of our undergraduate students through the first-year experience, utilizing effective and targeted methodologies. This method will promote increased graduation rates. Finally, international perspectives and experiences are key to students being successful in the global marketplace. So within the next 3 years, we will broaden the international perspectives and experiences of faculty and students through various academic programs. This summer, in fact, as we speak, 6 students in our School of Journalism and Graphic Communication are in South Africa covering the World Cup. They are working collaboratively with students from Shantou University in China to produce blogs, podcasts, and news stories about this global event. This opportunity results from the work of FAMU Professor Joe Ritchie. During his sabbatical in the summer of 2007, Professor Ritchie worked for the International Herald Tribune in Hong Kong and developed this idea for collaboration with a professor at Shantou University. We have also specified several metrics that we are using to measure our progress in our institutional work plan. And again, this work plan is consistent with similar metrics in the university's strategic plan. We have already established baselines on these metrics and would document regular progress on each of these measures. In the area of increase in research productivity, we expect to see increases in the number of proposals submitted, leading to increased research awards and expenditures. We have a goal at FAMU of reaching $100 million in research. In health sciences, we will monitor the results of launching our initiatives in Crestview, which will include academic programs and volunteer health services. In distance learning, we will measure the offerings of online degree and certificate programs, where we have again targeted high-demand programs in nursing, engineering, technology, and business. In the arena of international experiences, we will monitor the addition of international components to our academic programs, as well as international experiences for students and faculty. And finally, we are determined to increase the progression and retention rates of our undergraduate students. And we will do this through several focused initiatives, again, including our first year experience. As our retention initiatives yield results and our targeted recruitment efforts continue, we expect to see modest gains in enrollment as reflected in our enrollment plan. We are, again, grateful to the legislature for its support of higher education this past session, despite the dire circumstances that we found ourselves facing at the beginning of the session. Yet, as we forecast future funding, we know that more external funding is needed to accomplish the goals that we've outlined in this work plan. Therefore, we have worked with consultants to organize our fundraising campaign to secure significant funds to infuse into the university. We've spoken with key constituents, from trustees, alumni, boosters, members of our foundation board of directors about the campaign and we are now moving towards the launch of this comprehensive campaign. Further, we have implemented strategies for increasing the number of grant proposals that we submit for numerous federal funds that are available. This year, we successfully negotiated with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for an increase in the facilities and administrative rate or overhead on our contracts and grants. And finally, we are improving our business processes and our operations to ensure that we receive the highest level of productivity from our staff and from others. This will permit us to leverage our state appropriations to support the goals of our work plan. And then finally, I want to talk a few minutes about our differential tuition fee proposal. Enrollment growth, as we are projecting, will increase our tuition differential fees. For 2010-2011, we are proposing an increase in the differential tuition that will provide FAMU with an additional $7.06 per credit hour and would generate a total of $1.9 million. During the 2010-11 academic year, we will use 70% of our tuition differential to boost retention rates and to offer more general education course sections to keep our students on course for graduation. 30% of the differential fee will be provided for need-based financial aid to our students. And although the university had a modest internal fee increase, we did not request any new fees for 2010-2011 that must come before the Board of Governors. Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ammons. Any questions from members of the board? Governor Beard.
Yes, sir. How many dental schools are in the state at this point?
There are two. There is one public at the University of Florida and one private at Nova Southeastern in Fort Lauderdale.
Governor Tripp.
Could you just give me a little more information on, everybody says we're using the 30% for need-based, but could you elaborate a little more? If you didn't have this versus how it's going to be better for the students if you have it. Can you kind of tell me what's actually going to happen with the dollars that the students are going to see so that at the end of the day they're going to say, you know, yes, this money, this tuition we're paying, you know, it really got there?
Yes, first of all, we use the national definition for need-based, which is a sliding scale based on income, number of dependents, and it's tied to the poverty level in the United States. So those students, for instance, who receive federal need-based or the Pell Grant are also eligible to receive state need-based financial aid, which we use that same standard. Need-based financial aid in the state through legislative appropriation only goes so far, and it runs out. So with the addition of this differential tuition, the 30% would be used to make additional state awards for need-based financial aid based on the dollars that we collect from need-based financial aid.
Can I just ask a follow-up? Will it bring more students, make more students eligible for it?
They are already eligible based on their qualification through the national standard, which
So
we
they're
use.
So what you're saying is they're going to be getting more money?
There are some students who would not receive state need-based financial aid, for instance, because it only goes so far. We'll be able to make additional awards for the state financial aid. They already receive a Pell Grant, which is federal, and probably a Perkins loan.
Mr. President, thank you. Following up on Governor Tripp, are you giving any aid to people whose family income is above what would it take to qualify for a Pell Grant, but who clearly are in need of financial assistance to attend your university?
Well, if they are on a merit-based scholarship,
No,
and the reason why is that we have over 6,500 students, about 57% of our student body who qualify for need-based financial aid. All right, and so again, what they receive from Pell, what we receive from state need-based financial aid, and now what we receive from differential tuition, it takes up the need-based requirements that we have on our campus.
But
we just don't have the resources to go beyond those students who do not qualify for need-based aid unless they qualify for one of our scholarships.
So you define need-based aid, you define need as Pell Grant eligible,
That's correct.
even though between the two of us, we know that need may be much greater than just Pell Grant eligible.
We understand. I mean, and it's a big issue for us.
Okay.
It's a huge issue for us because the relatively small pot of discretionary dollars that we have beyond the tuition and fees, we are trying to build the university's enrollment with the best and the brightest. And so those dollars we have determined will be used for merit-based scholarships.
I understand.
Now, it's a tough, I mean, it's a great question, but it's really tough for us.
But
Wait, hold on.
Just one quick.
Governor Tripp, and then I won't look to my right at all.
Would you agree that maybe the Board of Governors ought to set some standards, some rules on this 30% that were there, so that we can get a better handle on driving the money across the board to a variety of students in the state? I think that's kind of where you were going a little bit, that you know, we're directing that it's 30% need-based, but we don't really have an understanding between us exactly what need-based is
but when you
in
say
each institution.
But when you say need-based, there is a definition of need-based. And so when you tell the institutions that 30% must be distributed in need-based aid, there is an accepted definition, as Dr. Ammons has indicated. So that tells the university this is the way you're going to give the money out. It will be the people who qualify per this definition of need-based. They're not at liberty to come up with their own definitions of need-based.
Well, that was
Now,
my
had
point.
we
My
just
point was,
said,
should we be broadening that definition a little bit so we're making it more inclusive?
no, you can't broaden the definition of need-based. Now, had you said that this money just needs to be given as aid, that's a different story. But we told the universities it was to be given out as need-based aid, and that is defined. And there are certain ways in which you qualify, and that's what they're doing. And we've asked this question of a couple of the institutions, and I think you'll find that that's what they're doing, is that they are using the accepted standard definition of what it means to be need-based. It's not up to them to make that decision.
I'm just not sure that we have a standard accepted definition of what need-based is.
We do.
You do, but I...
No, the feds do. They've defined it and said need-based aid. These are the qualifications for need-based aid.
Chancellor Brogan?
I was just going to say, and I won't dwell on this, but this needs to go into we need to talk about this a lot file. One of the questions that is not defined, however, is to what extent do you drive this to need-based as defined? In other words, if it costs X amount of money to go to a university, I'm not talking about FAMU now, any university, and students qualify for Pell Grants and Stafford loans and those kinds of things, what are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to guarantee at the end of the day that there is no burden placed upon the student, therefore 100%, or could be even more based on the way Pell Grants operate, is going to that student and therefore drawing down on that 30% to exhaust that? Or are we saying, hey, that puts the student who is the middle income student at a gross disadvantage because they're having to go take out traditional loans, et cetera, while someone else who comes from a low socioeconomic category is not only getting the full cost reimbursed when we put it all together, but actually may be going beyond the full cost to additional funds. So I'm not trying to confuse or confound this, but while the definition of needs-based is clear, what's not clear is how much compensation, how much support do we want to provide, can we provide, should we be providing to each student at the end of the day?
Frank, my comment was, as we make it more expensive, we impact more people. We make it more difficult for a greater number of people to afford the tuition. And my understanding was we were going to take 30% and we were going to keep up with that so that we didn't leave a larger gap of people, okay? Down here they've got it, but we've got this growing gap of people that are having trouble meeting this new increased cost. We were going to take some of the 30% and we were going to apply it to those people. My only question is, are we doing that? Do we want to do that, and are we doing that? That's where I'm coming from.
And I think it's just more of a system-wide issue that we'll take up. I think that the short answer is no, we're not doing that. But it is a question of whether we're going to address that via some of our further committee work.
And we can do that by surveying all the universities. We can actually create models of individual students and how they are reimbursed and that kind of thing. But it is something we need to look at as a system.
Governor Martin.
3 questions. I guess one is a follow-up question that we can talk about a little bit later. But even if all universities take into account the 15% differential, when that's added in, we will still be relatively low in terms of cost per pupil in terms of all universities nationwide. Where will we fall? Will we still be in the 48 or 49?
Yes.
We still will be. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. President Ammons, on your key university achievements, you talked about the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. Y'all was a grand prize winner in 2009. Could you talk about that a little bit in terms of what that competition was? It was 2009 National Council of Examiners and Engineering Survey Award for connecting professional practice and education.
Yes, it was an award that was a part of ABET's recognition. It's one of the categories that they recognize for engineering programs. And the civil engineering program was the winner of that award.
And how many schools actually participated in that competition? You have an idea?
It was open to all ABET accredited schools. Don't have the exact number, but all nationally, all ABET accredited schools were eligible, and it was a.
Okay. And FAMU was a grand prize winner. That's the point I wanted to
That's the point.
Okay. All right. Very
That's
good.
good.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
I'm sure it was. Okay. And my final question is on the dental school, kind of follow to Governor Beard's question. So we have 2 dental schools in the state. You said University of Florida and Nova Southeastern?
That's correct.
Okay. And why do you think the FAMU is positioned to, add a dental program to their curriculum? Why do you think that FAMU is best positioned to do that?
Well, I think once you examine the record of our programs in pharmacy, in public health, in the allied health sciences, and in nursing, you will find that there are graduates of these institutions who, and I think it's a part of our DNA, who work in underserved areas. It has been documented that there is a tremendous need for greater access to oral health care in underserved areas in the state of Florida. In fact, a few months ago, the Pew Foundation published a report where they graded all 50 states on the delivery of oral health care, especially to children, to poor children. There were only 6 states that received an F. Florida was one of those 6 states that received an F from the Pew Foundation study. I think, moreover, just this past weekend, I was the speaker at the closing dinner of the Sunshine State Dental Association and the Georgia Dental Society. These are the 2 African-American groups of dentists in the states of Florida and in Georgia. And I talked with them about the issues in the state of Florida and the fact, for instance, that we got about 10,000 dentists in the state of Florida, about 161 are African American. And of those 161, the majority of them treat patients who are on Medicaid. And so there is a profile of a dentist that is needed in the state of Florida. And because FAMU has had this tremendous record in healthcare disciplines where our graduates are in the underserved areas, we think that with the focus that we would have, recruiting students from underserved areas, we think that we would have a pretty good shot at those students graduating and addressing the critical oral health care needs in the state.
Governor Edwards?
Mr. President, I think you and your staff and your board have done a tremendous job since you have become president of A&M.
Thank you very much.
Going back to the dental school concept for a minute, I don't want to debate the merits of whether one's needed or whether it's not needed. I don't know that. I suspect one is definitely needed. I don't know whether it's needed in North Florida, Central Florida, South Florida, or at A&M or at some other university. What concerns me in these economic times, you're asking for us to approve a differential tuition increase, which you indicated would be about $1.9 million, I think you said.
That's correct.
And I think I read, and if I'm wrong, will somebody stop me, I think I read in the paper or one of our news clips where you were proposing spending $1.5 million to study the need for a dental school. And it hadn't even been approved, and I can tell you in economic conditions it ain't going to be approved for anybody for a number of years. How can you spend $1.5 million on a study, and I mean it would have to be coming out of the $1.9 million you're getting in a differential increase.
Well, we asked for $1.5 million. We didn't get it.
I thought I read where you were going to go ahead and use other university funds to do that.
Well, we're not going to use $1.5 million to do it from university funds. We're going to continue to work. We have a consultant who is now working with us, but his cost is nowhere near that. What we were talking about was a study that would go over a number of years. It's not $1.5 million in 1 year. This study is going to take more than a year. So we were talking about multiple years. We asked for it. We didn't get it. But for instance, we're working with the Florida Department of Health and their oral health care work group. They have invited us to come and be a part of this discussion on the workforce needs in oral health care. And we are looking at, and we've been doing this for almost 3 years now. There is a tremendous body of data and research that we have accumulated on the state of Florida, particularly on the panhandle of the state of Florida over the last 3 years, and we didn't get any additional dollars for it. We think that in order for us to have the kind of study that's going to have the credibility, that will call upon all of the national and state resources that we would need in order to develop that kind of study, it probably would cost about $1.5 million. But again, we didn't get it. So we are continuing to study. This is something that we think is extremely important. We think that it's something that is important for Florida A&M to be a part of, and we'll continue to ask for it, and maybe next year we'll get it.
Fair answer.
Governor Duncan?
Yes, President Ammons, again, great presentation.
Thank you.
If you could clarify on the online, I noticed the wording you were using was online degree programs, where if I understood, like the North Florida context, they were talking about maybe more course offerings, but this sounds like maybe you're really looking at doing certificates and or degrees that would be all online, and maybe then more distance learning versus online learning. Could you just help me understand the difference of how you're intending to use that part of the program?
I'm going to let the provost respond to that. She's working with it directly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Governor Duncan. Yes, we are taking distance education very seriously and at a rapid pace, quite slowly. Let me explain what I mean by that.
Please do.
Full steam ahead, because, as someone mentioned earlier, our students are ready for distance education. They're ready to learn online. That's their life. So we have to meet their needs very quickly. But at the same time, we don't want to jump into it until we know exactly what the implications are for us, what the impact will be. Our first phase is going to be what Dr. Ammons said, actual degree programs. So we're beginning with degree programs in business, in construction engineering, in nursing.
Is that intended audience then people not on campus, or is that?
The intended audience is for people who are not on campus. We anticipate, because we're planning this very meticulously, that will be successful, and it will also provide the basis for us to take the next series of steps. And those next steps, phases 2, 3, and 4, will then move into online offerings of courses for students on campus, for students far, far away, for students who want to take the general education requirements, for students who want to actually receive a general bachelor's degree from Florida A&M University. But that will happen subsequent to our launching of the degree programs. So we do see ourselves, let's say within 5 years, as offering a comprehensive online distance education program that has options for degrees as well as students on and off campus taking classes.
Thank you.
Any other question? Dr. Marshall?
First, I want to make a brief comment to Governor Edwards. He observed a moment ago that he thought a College of Dental Medicine might very well be needed for the group of people that President Ammons has described, but he didn't know whether it should be located in South Florida or Central Florida or where. And my response to that is, if that's the kind of an institution we're going to establish, where better than Florida A&M? It seems to me to be a logical place to put it. But beyond that, Madam Chair, I want to comment, well, let me say first that I've felt a measure of local pride for some years now in the growth and quality of the graduate programs at FAMU. It's a local pride because I live in Tallahassee. But I'm concerned, Mr. President, about the possibility of some graduates in the HBCU institutions around the country who are missing out on graduate study because they don't know about the opportunities at places like Florida A&M and are not given adequate encouragement. I served for more than 10 years on the Board of Trustees at Bethune-Cookman College and chaired it for several years. and miss no opportunities to encourage well-qualified graduates to go on to graduate study, and in particular to apply at FAMU. I was somewhat discouraged that many of those students didn't seem to know about the opportunities, even at FAMU in their own state. So my question is, would it be possible, or do you now have any kind of program to make contact with the students at other HBCUs to let them know what your offerings are and the opportunities that exist at FAMU?
We do. It is a very aggressive recruitment program for all students who are interested in graduate education at Florida A&M. But there is a sort of special focus that we placed on historically black colleges and universities actually throughout the United States. For instance, Honda Motor Company sponsors each year right here in Orlando the Campus All-Star Challenge. It is a brain bowl where they invite 64 historically black colleges and universities to Orlando. Florida A&M University was the first university to ask Honda for some space so that we could recruit these outstanding undergraduates from other historically black colleges and universities across the country. In addition to that, we've also established a graduate fellowship program, and Bethune-Cookman was the first one that we extended fellowships to through that program, and we've done the same thing with them for our law school. We have allocated slots in our graduate and law program for Bethune-Cookman University. And it's paying dividends. It's paying dividends. In fact, when we take a look at our applications for this coming school year, the applications are up in every category to include graduate applications. So it's working.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I have a question. I know that you commented a little bit during your presentation on, I guess, the fiscal soundness of the university. And I asked the question because I know that when you arrived, it seems like you've been here for a long time. It really hasn't been very long since you've been here. But I wanted to know, I know that a large part of your presentation, you talked about the plans for the university's dental school. And I guess I want to ask you about your feeling about the fiscal soundness of the university to take on this type of professional program. If you could comment on that, and I guess I can't imagine that you would say that you couldn't do it, but I'm just interested in having you kind of elaborate more on the condition, the current, I guess, fiscal condition of the university, particularly since there's just a large cost with, I guess, with professional programs.
Well, the current fiscal position of the university is sound. We have solidified the financial footing of Florida A&M. Like our sister institutions, over the past 3 years, we have experienced significant cuts to our budget. But in terms of how we manage the money, the accountability in the university, it's sound. I think Governor Edwards, I think that's what, I know I don't have to put words in Governor Edwards' mouth, but that's what he was concerned about. During these economic times, how would you do it? I think, first of all, there is a tremendous cost to this state and this nation not to do it. The health issues that emanate from oral diseases, I think is well documented, and we're learning more and more about it every day. But as we look at universities, one of the things that is so important to a university's growth, And especially in today's fiscal climate, growth is important. You have to have the academic programs that will carry the day in this new world order. Addressing health disparities is a critical problem for the state and for this nation. In addition to all of the other things that will happen as a result of having a College of Dental Medicine, the sciences, the programs in the sciences are going to grow. Research is going to grow. We would now become eligible for a whole new pool of funding from the federal government. And then, of course, there is the private sector. In fact, a major part of the discussion that we're having around our comprehensive campaign is how we're going to raise some dollars to enter into oral health care education. All right, so all of those issues we are aware of. We have taken them into consideration. But I tell you what, when you go into some of these communities and you see the devastation that has occurred because people don't have the resources to gain access to oral health care, it somewhat neutralizes that dollar sign that's going off in everyone's head. We think that this is going to be an investment in Florida A&M, in the state of Florida, and especially families, needy families in the state of Florida. But we're not going to discount the fact that this is going to be an expensive investment. It's not cheap, but the good that it would do, I think, will neutralize some of those cost concerns.
I just have one other question, and I know I'm running close to time here, but on your tuition differential request, and maybe you answered this and I missed it, but you have $68,000 to address retention. Can you tell me what I mean, that number is so specific in the lower number. I was interested in knowing, what is it that you're going to do with $68,000 to address retention?
Well, we have invested tremendously, and I'm going to let the provost talk about it. No, but I know what it's for. I know what it's for. This is in addition to university funds that we have been investing in retention over the past 3 years since I've been at the university. What that $68,000 is going to do, it will allow us to hire mentors for our students who are at risk, and also purchase some state-of-the-art software that we will use in order to assist those at-risk students with their studies and keeping them in. And I'll let the provost talk a little bit more about what we're doing in retention.
The focus of those dollars, too, will be on entering students. The plan is to truly hit freshman students hard and to hit them every year. And in 4 years, we have an entirely different population, in a sense, in terms of how they have been prepared, using the tutoring systems, the mentoring systems, the mandatory freshman experience programs that we have planned. So that particular amount is for the software and the technology and the launching of the mandatory freshman experience programs. But that's going to be combined with the restructuring of the advisement process, the restructuring of the communications that are going to be ongoing with students to let them know what their progress is, the communications with students to really make certain that they're in the right major, moving along the right paths. Those kinds of activities are a part of the entire process for contributing to the increased retention, but the specific dollars are for that freshman experience program and the software that's going to accompany that.
So this isn't, I guess, the higher necessarily students, like that peer counseling as much as this a software program associated with retention of freshmen. Is that what
Exactly.
Okay. Any other questions?
I noticed in many of the presentations that the universities are focusing on just that issue. My question is, do we have anything in place to assist each of the universities so that we're not creating a new wheel? You know, Florida State's doing it. I mean, everybody's doing it. Are we getting together as a system and saying, you know what, we know this works. You don't have to recreate it. Here's the programs. Here's how we're doing it.
Best practice.
Here's what the results are. And I think if we come out of some of these sessions understanding many of the schools got the same issue, they're all dealing with them, which ones are working so that we use our money wisely.
That's the issue of best practice. One of the things that we've talked about as staff is this exercise that we're all engaged in right now, which is to better share these kinds of things, will give us a much better opportunity to find out. Because you're right, not just this, you'll find a number of trends, I think, in these presentations, governors, that where universities are working across the board, perhaps not all of them, but across the board on common issues. How do we enjoin those issues to make sure that what everybody is doing is time-tested and works? And it's a very good point. And one of those issues, I think, is a real takeaway from this exercise.
I know that, I don't know, did you want to respond to that, President Adams? Or?
No, I do know that our provost and our student affairs vice presidents meet with the chancellor and his staff. And I think that is a great forum for us to share, Governor Tripp, those practices that are working. We have paid very close attention to what has been happening throughout the state university system, especially at Florida State University. Again, I think that would be a great forum for us to have the discussions on how we can package best practices in the state.
Thank you very much, President Ammons. I know that the Chancellor brought to my attention that I did not give the board representation that was present from Florida State University or from University of North Florida the opportunity to bring any greetings or make any comments that they would like to make, but I would certainly like to offer an opportunity to Chair.
I did that in the politest of ways.
He actually pulls my coattail a lot more than I pull his, although he talks a lot more than I do, so I don't understand that. But I would like to extend an opportunity to Chair Jennings to make any comments if you'd like, and to your other trustee representative if you'd like to have him speak. Please feel free to make any comments in closing that you'd like to make.
I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the Florida A&M story. And again, to encourage the Board of Governors to continue these types of sessions. I've been on the Florida A&M board for a number of years, but just listening to the other universities present, I mean, for me, it's been really a learning experience. And again, I would encourage you to continue these types of sessions. Thank you.
Dr. Badger? Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think that that the next thing that's on our agenda is that we were going to have some updates from our committee chairs as far as I guess a summary or some comments on their work plan. And I'm looking to my left to Mikey to ask. I know we're on a sort of a timeline. Do you think that I know we have that scheduled at the end of each day as well as during lunch? I think on tomorrow. The question is, do we have a moment to try to offer that opportunity at this point, or how are we doing on time?
7 minutes.
We have 7 minutes. I think that what I'd like to do is we'll go ahead and defer that, if you don't mind. We'll go ahead and, I'm sorry.
Madam Chairman.
Go ahead, Hosseini, yes.
Can I just, if we have 7 minutes, can I just
Sure.
tell you about the nominating trustee committee? Mine takes no more than 2 minutes. I have received all the previous documents that was used for that, and I am looking at them. Next week I'm on vacation, so I'm going to use some of that to look at all the documents, and then and make some suggestions, send it to all my committee members, and then set up a committee meeting and discuss it and ask all of our committee members if you have any changes, things like this. So once we set our bylaws, and then bring it to the board, get it approved, and be on our way.
Great. Thank you very much. I think that leaves us about 4 more minutes. Is there anyone else who would like to go ahead and take up the floor? Governor Edwards?
I don't think I need 4 minutes. From the Facilities Committee, there are really 4 areas that we're going to focus on. Number 1, we've got to update our debt management guidelines. This meeting, we will be discussing the definition of functional relationship as it relates to bonding. I think we're also going to take a little bit of a look at the ways universities spend excess funds from bonded projects. And we're wide open. We just want to take a look at that. I know that there's been a lot of discussion. Some universities kind of use it as slush fund's not the right word. They're legally doing it. But they use it for things that are totally unrelated to the source of the funding. We also are going to take a review and probably hopefully enhance our PICO approval process. We are going to ask staff to take the university work plans that are coming today and tomorrow to identify the facility-related issues in those plans and to try to summarize them in some type of a standard format so that we'll be able to take a look down the road and enhance everybody's long-range planning. The last thing I think we need to do as a result of the settlement of the lawsuit, clearly the regulatory authority for facilities is now with the Board of Governors, and I think we need to give some consideration to formalizing and developing our own facility regulations. And I think if we can accomplish half of that, we'll have a heck of a year.
That's great. So thank you, Governor Edwards, and thank you, Governor Hosseini, for providing that information. I think that this kind of gives us some idea about some of the things that we can be looking forward to for the trustee nominating committee as well as for the facilities committee. As indicated, tomorrow during lunchtime, we'll take up some of the information from some of the other board chairs as well to discuss what your work plan is. With that, I'm going to go ahead and,
Mikey just said we could, you feel free to leave your paper materials here so you don't have to cart them out with you. They'll be here for you tomorrow morning when you come back. Yeah, take all electronics and jewelry.
So with that, our meeting, is there anything else, any more housekeeping other than the fact that we come back tomorrow at 8:30?
8:30 a.m.
So with that, we'll adjourn. I'll see you at 8:30 tomorrow.
What time do we meet?